Welcome to A Human Element, a podcast series putting our people at the centre of everything we do. Throughout this series, we'll meet fascinating individuals involved in transformation journeys and driving high-performing teams. We'll explore how they motivate and engage both themselves and those around them, focusing on well-being and resilience. We live in a world of constant change with rapidly evolving technology, and we're always striving to do more with less. A Human Element will slow things down, reduce the noise, and talk openly about the challenges we're all facing. A community that places our people at the centre of everything we do. Welcome to A Human Element. My name is Adam Higgins from Allianz Recruitment, and I'm your host for this series. Today, part 2 of my conversation with Chris Iwanowski, Chief Transformation Officer of Allianz Insurance. If you didn't hear part 1, I'd recommend you going back to the previous episode. In this episode, we continue our discussion about transformation journeys and building high-performing teams, including the role that AI can play. I like the fact that you touched on AI. AI is not a new thing. Generative AI is a new thing, and it's, everyone's talking about it, and it's very topical. I guess, how are you balancing the use of that with the human element? How are you leveraging it, but not, replacing the human side of things?
Mm. So let me start at the beginning, at least for me, for my journey. After school, I started university, and I studied mathematics. And during my time at university, I also had courses on artificial intelligence because once you are in mathematics and you are not deciding to go the theoretical route, and you go the pragmatic or the practical route, and you go into numerics and numerical analysis, you touch things like computing, supercomputing, and then all of a sudden you are in coding and all of that. And then artificial intelligence at that point was somewhere out there. The concepts already quite well understood, not to the degree that we see now, right? Mm. But the concepts and the ideas were quite well understood, but there wasn't the computing power. The chips weren't there, and so it was this theoretical concept, and there was this notion of those dreamers over there, right? So you're right, it's not new, but it's coming into fruition now, and massively so. And I think what we underestimated, because we're just not good at it as a species, we are always underestimating exponential functions. Yeah. And we are now in one of these exponential...
It's a big spike, yeah.
Yeah, these spikes, right? We just see this enormous spike, and there's news on this everywhere. And then people tend to go into a frenzy, right?
Creates a bit of fear as well.
Yeah, I would say so, yeah. And probably rightly so, right? And fear is not a problem. Fear is a
fear can
natural,
drive you.
Yeah, and it's a general reaction. There might be something wrong. Let's have a look into it, right? So that's the outset for me. And then when it comes to my day-to-day business, obviously at the stage that AI is in right now, it would be foolish if you wouldn't explore it on a daily basis. If I would be highly surprised if I would find someone in my team who doesn't deliberately touch generative AI specifically on a daily basis. I mean, we are touched by AI every day regardless, right? That's not the point. Because everyone has a smartphone, and so we are interacting with generative AI and AI on a daily basis for months and years. But to use it deliberately, actively yourself, I would be highly surprised if anyone in my team still would have days without it.
Yeah.
So, and why wouldn't you? The company has given us access to it, to use it in our daily work lives. So why would I have an important email be proofread by someone from my team? Ridiculous. That thing can do that much better and so efficient. Why would I not have a rough manuscript be drawn for me and then professionalize and perfect it to my liking?
Of course.
Why would my team, for example, when we build epics for our solutions, when we build out of these epics user stories to explain to our colleagues in IT what we want the machine to do concretely, what we want the user to experience, what we want our employees to experience when they switch the machine on, right, and service our customers. Why wouldn't we explore how to use AI to help us draw these things up and be even faster with it?
No, I agree. I just think as long as you're maintaining a level of authenticity, I guess, because the struggle can be, that your voice, it's not your genuine voice, or it's not your genuine ideas. I think it's good if you operate in a very sort of like stream of consciousness sort of manner, where you've got all these ideas and you're thinking, how do I put these to paper? And it's almost like a filtering process and chiseling stuff down. I'm
a big fan of having the human in the loop, right? So whatever it is that is being built, the last push of the button needs to be from a human being, and that ensures, hopefully, with accountable and responsible human beings, that they, read through the text, make sure it's their own.
Yeah.
Either AI is not going to be the big revolution that we make it out to be, or we are not preparing enough as a society for what's coming. I don't think there is much space in between where we can say, it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
The fuss that we are making indicates a huge societal shift coming up. And if that is the case, then our preparations for that and our efforts to prepare for that are too little. I'm not saying too late, but they are definitely too little.
Yeah.
And there's too much noise that has nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
Right? I want to make it very pointy, and then I probably will shut up because I haven't had the time to think it through.
No, it's fine.
But when I hear educated people in the market globally saying things like, we are probably looking at something that is as influential as the splitting of the atom. When people say things like this, then immediately you have to look the other way and ask for the preparations. And as much as I see people making statements like this, of this sort, I'm not seeing enough people talking about the consequences and how we can steer and manage our society through this.
Yeah, the risk implications.
Yes,
and
that's all I'm gonna say for now, because I still need some more conversations about this and also have more time to think.
Yeah, of course.
Which I clearly don't have at the moment.
No, sorry, I put you on the spot a little bit sorry. There. We're obviously in a world driven by data and numbers, and and from a people perspective, how do you navigate people through that without them feeling like they are just a number as part of a bigger number in a machine? How do you, I guess, what are those softer touches that you use to make people feel less like a number?
Yeah,
sorry, long-winded question.
No. I think that's a valid point. There is a necessity to have your data as accurate as possible, there's a need for consistency in your data measurements, right? So, for example, if someone wants to get on a diet to lose weight, for example, right? That's probably something that everybody can relate to. Then I would say it's absolutely important not only to step on a weight scale every day or every now and then, but you want to step on the same weight scale every day, right? Because you want to have consistent data, right? You want to have a data flow and you want to have consistent data flow. So I think, and there are a couple of more necessities to how you measure data. And if you build that right, and if you are correct with that, and if you get your data efficiently and effectively, and you get it ideally with a very small time lag, then you have created something where people at least can trust the data, right?
Yeah.
So that's the initial thing. You don't want to feel overwhelmed by it.
No.
Then you want to be but there is an overwhelming aspect to it. So you at least want to understand what the paradigms are, and then you trust them, and then you can trust the numbers, and then at least that part of your uncertainty and thus your anxiety that is driven by that, it can go away.
Yeah.
Because you can actually trust the data, and the data is here to help you. Right?
Yeah.
And then I think it's a lot about making people feel that it's there to keep ourselves accountable, yes, but it's also there to help us and guide us through something that we wouldn't be able to steer otherwise.
You're listening to A Human Element, a podcast series putting our people at the centre of everything we do. My name is Adam Higgins, and in conversation with Chris Iwanowski, Chief Transformation Officer of Allianz Insurance. Something that I wanted to touch on is from a conversation we had a few weeks ago about sort of the role of coaching and the role of another voice. Obviously, you've got your internal voice that motivates you and spurs you on, and then your voice projects to your team. But I guess I wanted to touch on that sort of third party role of a coach, and how you've leaned into that, how you've maximized that.
Coaching has different aspects, right? And I am probably one of the bigger advocates for this. I was fortunate enough, so when I stepped into my first leadership role, I was fortunate enough that my company gave me a leadership coach at the time. And I found that experience so amazing and so useful that I have never lost that habit. People have changed, of course, in my life, because different situations need different insight.
Yeah.
But to generalize it a little bit more and then dive a little bit into the specifics, what I mean with that is it's usually good when you are not the expert on a certain topic, if it's important to you, to draw from the experience of professionals. Right? That's true in any case. With medical doctors, for example, everybody understands that. Most of us understand it when it comes to our hair, and we go to the barber or the hairdresser. And maybe we can agree that it's not the most important thing in life, right? But still we are drawing from the knowledge and the know-how of professionals.
You're outsourcing.
We're outsourcing, exactly. Why not outsource ideas, creating ideas for leadership? Why not have someone sitting next to me who just looks at what I'm doing on a daily basis and gives me feedback in the evening? Why not have a couple of sessions where I'm running with someone who has no stakes in the game. Run them through and pay them for. Fine, right? Why would anyone deal with my problems, right?
Yeah.
Pay them for listening to my challenges and help me and guide me through structurizing them.
And it almost takes the emotion out of it as well. It takes the subjectivity out of it and makes it completely objective.
Yes. And then and that's the business coaching aspect, right? And another aspect is, for example, when we talk about sports, right? So for me, my recipe for resilience is pretty basic. It's again 80-20 rule, right? For me, the 20% is I need a good night's sleep. I need to be able to have a little bit of time with my family and with my kids. I really draw energy from this.
Yep.
I need a somewhat healthy diet, and I need to lift weights frequently, at least 3 to 5 times a week.
Yeah.
Right? If that is true, I usually function well.
It's a happy Chris.
That's a happy Chris, right? That's a happy Chris for me.
Yeah.
Of course, there are a couple of many more things that can add to that.
But they're the main ingredients.
That is the main ingredients for me to function well, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to sports, for example, for lifting weights, how can I be so, how can I be so? I'm struggling to find the right word. I don't want to be too derogatory for myself, but I need to. Let me put it another way. I need to lean into experts on that as well. I would never think that I can that my technique is proper, and the last thing I need is a smashed shoulder. Right.
Yeah.
So at one point or another, I want to have that coaching session with a sports professional. Right. And now from all of that, I always encourage people and say, and then, guys, I really hope you're not, but probably at some point your life will encounter hardships as well. Loved ones will pass. Things like that. Usually things come in pairs or triplets, right? And then you have trouble at work, and then you have this and that, and maybe one of your kids is sick. So
can have a bit of a domino effect.
Yes, and if that happens, why not turn yourself to a life coach or even to a mental coach as well? So I'm a big advocate for that. And unfortunately, it's not done with your best mate and your best friend asking, are you okay? And then, the classic one would be have a couple of beers together and talk it out. Sometimes that's just not enough.
No.
And so then I want people to, not feel ashamed or anything.
Again, it's vulnerability.
Ask for help. The same way you would ask for help if your shoulder hurts and you go to the GP. The same way you ask for help on, do I lift weights correctly or will I smash my shoulder again? The last thing you want to have, I'm living proof of that because I had it, is a slipped disc, right? So
wow.
I was doing a lot of weights back then. It's probably seven years ago, and I slipped a disc. And I have to say, if only I had turned to professionals, that could have been prevented, right? So I'm a big advocate for that. And I would always encourage people to always make yourself vulnerable, ask for help, ask professionals, not with everything.
No,
right?
no.
Some things are
because you wouldn't get anything done.
They don't have they don't have the biggest priority in your life. But if something takes priority in your life, you probably want to consult a professional, and that's true for everything.
It's being the best version of yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's setting yourself up to succeed and maximizing your potential.
Yeah. And I can still sense that there's in our society there's still some hesitancy,
stigmas,
and stigmas. The moment there's almost but we are getting rid of that, right? So 30 years ago there might have been a stigma around, oh really, you need to see a dietitian, or you what do you need that for, right? And no one asked that question today, right? And so I really want that normalization to take place in emotional stability and mental stability as well.
Yeah.
Because especially in high pressure environments, you want to be resilient.
Yeah.
And you want to be resilient for yourself, for your loved ones, and for your work, probably in that order.
Absolutely. You know, I've never had so many conversations in the last, I'd say 12 to 18 months where people were just burnt out. People are just trying to, you know, they're working in companies that are trying to do more with less, and it has a real destabilizing effect on people's lives. And you know, we spend a lot of time at work, right? And how things are at work has a cascading effect on how you show up, you know, when you go home and when you're with your kids, and you know, and then you might go to the gym and you might be in a bad mood, and your workout's not quite right, and you're not mentally there. So it has a cascading,
a knock-on effect,
domino effect.
Yeah. And so I can honestly say, I would not work for a company, or if I encounter a division in my company that doesn't adhere to those normal principles.
Yeah.
If we can't agree on that, I'm not gonna work there.
It's a non-negotiable.
And it's absolutely a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
We have to maintain rigor, resilience, stability, because only then we produce good outcomes.
Our best work.
Exactly. And yeah,
and,
important.
And just on coaching, I know the role of a coach was instrumental in you actually being here.
Oh yeah, you're right. Have we talked
not here
about
in this room?
No. Have we talked about this?
We have. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So you know, there's there was a time in my life. There was very close relatives of mine had passed, and I hadn't given myself time to work through this emotionally, and I made the dumb mistake, I must say, to throw myself into work almost as a therapeutic idea, and that didn't work out well. So I had a couple of sessions with a very, very good life coach, right, to really work through the situation that I was in, setting my priorities better, and that was years ago, and it gave me a lot of practical things I can do today to build my resilience, and it was a great reset of my priorities.
Yeah.
And also my little 80-20 regime that I just told you about. It comes from those days. Yeah. I built that there.
Okay.
And so that's how I knew Martin is his name. And when we hadn't spoken in a while, and when my wife and I were juggling with this idea of coming to Australia, obviously we had this, pros and cons, and what are we doing with the house? What are we doing with the kids? What are we doing here? What are we doing there? And we could feel the pressure and the tension mounting. And it was almost as if we weren't able to focus on the one hand, and on the other hand, maybe just enjoy the trip a little. Yeah. And so we decided to give Martin a call and have a session with him. And he said, look, if you need me, just, jump on a video call and we have a session together. And we had a session together, and he started the session and he said to us, look, guys, just from the outset, I don't do partnership therapy. and I'm like, no. And I said, no, this is not quite it. It's actually, and it was already really good to have a laugh about this.
I love how he presumed that.
Yeah. And then we said, no, we just wanted to have someone where there's a trusting relationship, and we just wanted to explain to you and have a third person who is not our family, who is not the company, who's not
there's not a vested
anyone.
interest.
It's not there's no vested interest, right? And just be someone who listens to us and helps us find clarity and maybe just joy in the moment, right? And that was really, really good. Yeah. And I'm not saying that I'm not this exaggerating person that would now sit here and say we wouldn't have made the decision without him. So
no.
Probably we would still be here. But he
gave you a little nudge.
It was really good to find our way through that jungle and then come out much stronger at the end.
Yeah.
And I think I can just it just adds to my constant advocacy to just do these things and ask outsiders for opinions. You never come out of a conversation dumber than you went in. That's what my grandmother
I don't
used
imagine
to say,
it was. I don't imagine it was a long conversation.
Well, it was.
It's not hard to sell to someone to move to Australia, is it? I mean,
well, I think. Look, my wife and I, we have never been before. Okay, so Australia wasn't on either of our radars before. We had different goals when it comes to traveling, and so Australia was to some degree quite behind a veil of ignorance, right, on our part. And
I think it is for a lot of people,
and I think so too. And regardless of how good it has been now, and how I have become and we have become an advocate for people just come here, experience it, and no matter how many people can talk to you and say, you're gonna love it, right? That's just other people saying that. You have to jump yourselves, right? And it also depends on the situation that you are in.
Of course,
we had just not long ago, we had purchased a house, we had remodeled it, right? So these are all things that you need to work through in your mind. And people are in different situations, and they have to find their way through that.
Of course, yeah.
Of course, now after 1.5 years and after seeing all of this and experiencing it, would I say it was the right decision? Absolutely. Am I a big advocate for Australia and how this country is being set up and how it is being run? Yes, absolutely. And I would do that anytime, anywhere. You can shake me up at midnight, and I will say the same thing.
Yeah.
Don't need to think about it. So, as you're saying, it's not a hard sell, but usually it's not a hard sell to people who've already seen it, have been in touch with it.
It's very true. Yeah, it's very true. I know, for me, like personally, I don't think relatives really got it until they came here. But I think there was always this like mirage of Australia and what it's like, and
and the memes of people, big bucks that kill you.
Exactly, spiders, sharks, people wearing those hats with corks hanging down. I don't think I've ever seen anyone wear one of those. I can only say people don't know until they come here, and then they go. And I think the amount of times like my parents have said it to me, like, I get why you're here. Like, and that's comforting for them as well. Because if they came here and hated it, they'd be like, what's this guy doing? Like,
I can only say my father was just with us for 2 months. My mother-in-law is visiting us right at this moment for the 3rd time already.
Wow.
And I can only say, and many others have come visit us, and I can only say it's the same reaction with everyone, right?
Yep.
So you're right. Once you have made the trip, it's not a tough sell.
No.
But I can totally understand how it is a tough sell for different people in different situations.
Because it's probably obvious to the listeners that, I'm an Englishman, you're a German. We're not natives here. I've been here 8.5 years. You're a year and a half in. I guess, just taking a moment of gratitude really for the opportunity
absolutely.
that we've got here. And, I know a lot of people do like a welcome to country at the start and they say, oh, how great it is to be on this land. I guess we're almost wrapping up and doing it at the end. But, I think, it's a huge, and we've talked about this recently, there's huge opportunity for people like us, and so many of our listeners, and there's so much untapped potential to be unlocked and achieved here.
Yes.
And I think, it's something that people should be, even if you're a native, I sometimes think natives don't necessarily know how great it is, because to your point, they haven't been on the other side of the fence. And I'm not saying that England and Germany are horrible dark places.
I agree.
But it's, I think, we just need to take a moment to be really grateful for where we are.
Yes,
and the opportunity we have.
I think so too. And what I don't like is and I agree with you, to go at the beginning of a podcast or any event and run almost robotical through this appreciation sentences that are written on a paper and no one ever memorizes them. Yeah, what I find is much more honest, and I think that is one of these threads that run at least through our conversations. It's honesty and transparency.
Definitely.
And I think what we are doing right now, that's much more honest. So I can honestly say, I really appreciate being here. I really appreciate this adventure. My whole family does.
Yeah.
And we are extremely grateful to be here and share this moment in time in this place with everyone who's here.
Yeah. And I'm really grateful for your time. I know.
Thanks for this therapy session.
No, it's all good. I think you're a busy guy, and you're in back-to-back meetings. But I think the fact that you're so heavily bought into having these conversations, and I think that you're so, I guess, passionate about this stuff really resonates, and I think for people listening, I'm sure there's people out there who go, I want to work for this guy. And I know I'm buttering you up there, but I think that sort of culture is something that people would want to be a part of, and that kind of those ideas on life, and I like how this conversation is intertwined between the personal and you as an individual, but also your team and how you manage, and because it is all interrelated. And
look, I'm gonna probably end by telling you why I'm here, and again, I would say probably this is not the best selling proposition or anything, but I'm a down to earth guy, right? So I'm gonna be honest. This is the first time you've done a podcast, right? And we had a conversation, and do you want to, Chris? Do you want to get on board? Do a conversation, and let's find out together what this could be like. And I think it would be absolutely outrageous to think that this is going to be viral, or that this is going to be the platform where I get my next bench to hire people and they line up around the block, right? So that's not going to happen. Right?
No.
So I decided to approach this from a much different angle, where I just say, look, if we say something here that resonates with one person and helps in whatever situation that we wouldn't have otherwise touched, that was worth our time.
Absolutely.
And I think if you approach it from that, you can only be overwhelmed what's going to happen.
And
you never know.
That's my exact philosophy. And I tried not to overthink this. I tried not to undercook it, but I tried not to overcook it.
Yeah.
And I just threw myself in. And sometimes that's the best way.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I sat here and read off a script and it was really cliche and cheesy, and that wouldn't be fun or engaging. So you're a great storyteller. I really appreciate your time. Really appreciate the guys here for hosting us. And
absolutely.
I really appreciate Talenza for getting behind this as well. It's something that has been brewing for a while, and I think, you know, we just threw ourselves in.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Chris. You've been listening to A Human Element with me, Adam Higgins. If you've enjoyed this conversation, please follow and subscribe on Spotify and YouTube. I look forward to bringing you even more authentic and engaging conversations, putting our people at the heart of everything we do.